A doctor's son targeted for being different. Fines pile up. But Dr. Malcolm Reed won't back down. When the HOA's cruelty sparks a media storm, one moment changes everything. You won't believe what happens next. Watch to see justice unfold. Your son's chalk drawings are a public nuisance, the letter read, stamped with the Crestwood Homeowners Association's seal. Dr. Malcolm Reed, 43, stood in his Raleigh kitchen, the paper trembling in his hand. The words burned, another fine, $200 this time, for Isaiah's disorderly conduct. His 11-year-old son, who found solace in sketching fire trucks on the sidewalk, was no criminal. Malcolm's jaw tightened. This wasn't just bureaucracy. This was personal. The Crestwood neighborhood, with its manicured lawns and oak-lined streets, was a postcard of suburban Raleigh in 2016. Malcolm, a black pediatrician and single father, had chosen it for its quiet streets, perfect for Isaiah, who navigated the world through the lens of mild autism. Isaiah's routines, spinning toy truck wheels, tracing chalk lines, were his anchors. But to Doreen Maple, the 62-year-old HOA security chief, they were an affront to order. Her letters arrived like clockwork, each one sharper. Unsightly markings, noise complaints, unacceptable behavior. Malcolm had paid the first 2 fines, hoping to keep the peace. This third one, though, crossed a line. Malcolm glanced out the window. Isaiah sat cross-legged on the driveway, a red crayon in one hand, a toy truck in the other, oblivious to the storm brewing. The boy's focus was a gift, but it made him a target. Doreen's complaints weren't about chalk. Malcolm had overheard her at the last HOA meeting, muttering about those people and how special needs kids don't belong here. The memory fueled his resolve. He wasn't just fighting for Isaiah's right to draw, he was fighting her prejudice. That evening, Malcolm sat at his desk, a stack of HOA letters before him. His role on the state medical board gave him connections, lawyers, reporters, advocates. He'd tried diplomacy, attending HOA meetings, explaining Isaiah's needs. Doreen had dismissed him, her thin lips curling as she cited community standards. Enough was enough. Malcolm drafted an email to a friend at the Raleigh News and Observer, attaching photos of the fines and Isaiah's drawings, bright, chaotic swirls of trucks and flames. "This is discrimination," he wrote. "I need your help." The next morning, Doreen was at it again. Malcolm spotted her across the street, clipboard in hand, scribbling as she watched Isaiah draw. Her gray cardigan and pinched expression were as much a fixture as the neighborhood's stop signs. Malcolm stepped outside, his voice calm but firm. "Ms. Maple, we need to talk." She didn't look up. "Your son's making a mess again. Reed, rules are rules." "Rules don't target children for being themselves," he said, stepping closer. "This stops now." Doreen's eyes narrowed. "Take it up with the board, or pay the fine." She turned away, her heels clicking on the pavement. Malcolm's phone buzzed as he watched her go. A reply from the News and Observer. "This is big. Can we meet tomorrow?" His pulse quickened. The fight was on. Back inside, Isaiah looked up from his trucks. "Dad, did I do something bad?" Malcolm knelt, his voice soft. "No, buddy. You are perfect. Some people just don't see it yet." As Isaiah returned to his drawing, Malcolm felt the weight of what lay ahead. Doreen's vendetta was about to meet a force she couldn't ignore. A father's love, backed by the truth. Dr. Malcolm Reed sat across from Sarah Nguyen, a reporter from the Raleigh News and Observer, in a downtown coffee shop. The hum of espresso machines couldn't drown out the urgency in his voice. "This isn't about chalk," he said, sliding a folder of HOA fines across the table. "It's about a woman targeting my son for being different." Sarah's pen moved swiftly, her eyes narrowing as she scanned Doreen Maple's letters. By the time Malcolm finished, she was hooked. "This could be front page," she said. "Give me 2 days." Back in Crestwood, the air felt heavier. Malcolm noticed neighbors glancing at Isaiah as they walked their dogs. their whispers trailing like smoke. Doreen's campaign had spread. Notes in mailboxes. Murmurs at the community pool. "That boy's a problem," one said. "The fines are for everyone's good." Malcolm's calm exterior hid a growing fire. Isaiah, unaware of the gossip, kept drawing, his chalk lines bolder, as if claiming the sidewalk as his own. But Malcolm saw the toll. Isaiah's bedtime questions grew sharper. "Why does that lady hate my pictures?" The story broke on a Wednesday, the News and Observer's headline screaming, "HOA targets autistic child with fines." Sarah's article detailed Doreen's complaints, quoting Malcolm's email and an autism advocate who called the fines discriminatory. By noon, local TV vans lined Crestwood's streets, cameras trained on Malcolm's house. Reporters knocked, asking for interviews. Malcolm agreed to one, standing on his lawn with Isaiah at his side, the boy clutching a toy truck. "My son deserves to be a kid," Malcolm told the anchor, his voice steady but fierce. "This HOA is punishing him for who he is." The neighborhood split like a fault line. Some residents left supportive notes on Malcolm's porch, cookies, cards, a promise to vote Doreen out. Others rallied behind her, their lawns sprouting signs, "Support HOA standards." Doreen, undeterred, called an emergency HOA meeting. Malcolm attended, his lawyer, Carla Evans, at his side. The community center buzzed with tension, folding chairs packed with residents. Doreen stood at the podium, her voice clipped. "Dr. Reed's accusations are baseless," she said, holding up a photo of Isaiah's chalk drawings. "These are vandalism, plain and simple." Malcolm rose, his presence commanding. "Vandalism? My son is 11 with autism. You fined him for existing." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Carla followed, citing North Carolina's anti-discrimination laws and the Fair Housing Act. "These fines are illegal," she said. "We're prepared to sue." The room erupted, some cheering, others shouting. Doreen's face tightened, but she didn't flinch. "This isn't over," she said, storming out. The escalation came the next morning. Malcolm woke to a certified letter from the HOA, signed by Doreen, a $500 fine for defamation, and a demand to remove Isaiah's drawings by noon or face a lien on their home. Malcolm's hands shook as he read it. This wasn't just a fine, it was a threat to their future. He called Carla, who was already drafting a federal complaint. "She's overplayed her hand," Carla said. "This is retaliation. We've got her." But the fight was wearing Malcolm down. At the hospital, where he soothed sick children, he felt the strain, late nights strategizing, early mornings reassuring Isaiah. His son's routines were fraying. Isaiah's toy truck stayed untouched, replaced by anxious rocking. Malcolm blamed himself. Had he pushed too hard, exposed Isaiah too much? He confided in his sister, Lena, over the phone. "You're doing this for him," she said. "Don't stop now." Then came the twist. Sarah called Malcolm that evening, her voice urgent. "I got an anonymous tip. Doreen's been hiding something. Meet me tomorrow." The next day, at a park near the state capitol, Sarah handed him a folder. Inside were emails, leaked from an HOA board member, showing Doreen's real motives. One, sent to a developer, read, "If we clean up problem residents, this neighborhood's value skyrockets." Another mentioned undesirable families and singled out Malcolm's address. The emails weren't just prejudiced. They were a plan to push out anyone who didn't fit Doreen's vision, including Isaiah. Malcolm's heart raced. This was dynamite. "How did you get these?" he asked. "Someone on the board grew a conscience," Sarah said. "They're scared of Doreen, but more scared of a lawsuit." Malcolm gripped the folder. The media firestorm had rattled Doreen's allies, and now her own words were a weapon. He thought of Isaiah, drawing alone on the driveway, and Doreen's smug clipboard across the street. The fight wasn't just personal anymore. It was about every family she'd targeted. Malcolm looked at Sarah. "Let's bury her with this." Malcolm Reed's hands trembled as he held the folder of Doreen Maple's damning emails, each word a blade aimed at his son. Isaiah. The leaked messages laid bare her scheme to purge Crestwood of undesirable families, with Isaiah's autism as her pretext. In his Raleigh living room, Malcolm's pulse thundered. This wasn't just a fight for his son, it was war. Doreen's decades-long reign over the HOA, her web of loyalists, demanded a ruthless counterstrike. He wouldn't let her win. At a dimly lit diner near the state capitol, Malcolm huddled with Sarah Nguyen, the News Observer reporter, and his lawyer, Carla Evans. Sarah's voice was low, urgent. Tom Hargrove, the board member who leaked these, will testify, but he's terrified. Doreen's been blackmailing board members with their minor violations. Carla's jaw tightened. That's extortion. We'll bury her. Their plan was surgical. Sarah's expose would detonate the emails. Malcolm would ignite community rebellion, and Carla would slam the HOA with a federal lawsuit for discrimination and retaliation. The air crackled with resolve. Crestwood was a battlefield. The first article had split the neighborhood, and now whispers turned to shouts. Malcolm hosted a clandestine meeting at his home, the living room packed with 20 angry residents. Maria Lopez, a mother fined for her son's skateboarding, spoke first, her voice shaking. Doreen called my son a delinquent to my face. Others unleashed their fury, fines for overgrown lawns, threats over holiday lights. Malcolm stood tall. She's bullied us long enough. Stand with me at the HOA meeting. Bring your pain. The room roared agreement. Isaiah, though, was crumbling. The media swarm, cameras, shouting reporters, had stolen his sanctuary. His chalk lay abandoned, his toy trucks gathering dust. One evening, Malcolm found him curled on his bed, rocking, eyes wet. "Dad, are we bad people?" Isaiah whispered. Malcolm's chest burned, rage and guilt colliding. He pulled his son close, voice fierce. "You're my hero." Isaiah, no one's taking that away. But doubt gnawed at him. The $500 fine and lien threat hung like a guillotine, and Isaiah's fear was a wound Malcolm couldn't heal. The HOA meeting was an inferno. Over 100 residents crammed the community center, air thick with sweat and fury. TV crews hovered like vultures. Doreen strode to the podium, her gray cardigan a mockery of calm. "Doctor, Reed's lies are tearing us apart," she sneered, flashing a photo of Isaiah's rain-faded chalk drawings. "This is chaos, not art." Her supporters clapped, but Malcolm surged to his feet, voice like thunder. "You targeted my son for being autistic, and I've got your confession." He thrust the folder skyward, reading her emails aloud. "Undesirable families must go. Increase fines for Reed's kid." The crowd gasped as he named Tom Hargrove, who stood in the back, trembling but defiant. Doreen's face twisted, a mask of venom. "Those are forgeries," she shrieked. Slamming the podium, Carla advanced, her words razor sharp. "These emails break federal law. We're suing you and the HOA for discrimination." The room exploded. Cheers, jeers, fists pounding tables. Maria Lopez leapt up. "You fined my son for existing," a father bellowed about his daughter's noisy wheelchair. Doreen's allies faltered, their shouts drowned by a tide of defiance. She staggered back, eyes wild, then fled through a side door, reporters chasing her. Dawn brought Sarah's expose. HOA chief's emails exposed bigotry. Tom's testimony and resident accounts fueled outrage. Social media erupted, with autism advocates and civil rights leaders amplifying the call for justice. Strangers sent donations to Malcolm's legal fund, their notes vowing support. But Doreen struck back, venomous and desperate. A courier delivered a petition, signed by 40 neighbors, demanding Malcolm's expulsion for inciting unrest. The names, people he'd trusted, cut deeper than any fine. He read it on his porch, Isaiah nearby, finally sketching again, oblivious to the betrayal. That night, Malcolm stood alone in his kitchen, the petition crumpled in his fist. He'd exposed Doreen, but at what cost? Isaiah's smiles were fading, and neighbors he'd called and friends had turned. Then Carla called, her voice electric. HUD's launching a federal probe into the HOA. Thanks to those emails, Doreen's finished. Malcolm exhaled, the weight lifting slightly. The battle had cracked Doreen's empire, and the truth was a wildfire. He glanced at Isaiah's latest drawing, a bright red truck, defiant on the driveway. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Better. Malcolm Reed stood on his Crestwood lawn, the morning sun glinting off news vans parked along the street. The folder of Doreen Maple's emails, now infamous, had sparked a federal investigation, and today was the reckoning. The HOA board had called an emergency vote to oust Doreen as security chief, prompted by the U.S. Department of Housing's probe and mounting resident fury. Malcolm's fight for Isaiah, his 11-year-old son with autism, had become a beacon. But the scars of betrayal, 40 neighbors signing Doreen's petition to expel him, still stung. He glanced at Isaiah, kneeling on the driveway, tracing a fire truck in vibrant chalk. This was for him. The community center was a cauldron of anticipation. Over 200 residents filled the seats, their murmurs a low roar. TV cameras flanked the room, capturing every glance. Malcolm sat with his lawyer, Carla Evans, and Sarah Moyan and Gwen, whose exposés had turned the tide. Doreen entered last, her gray cardigan pristine but her eyes hollow, like a general facing defeat. She avoided Malcolm's gaze, clutching a leather notebook as she took the podium. "I've served this community for decades," she began, voice thin. "These accusations are a witch hunt." But the crowd's silence was deafening. No applause, no support. Tom Hargrove, the whistleblower, stood next. His hand shook, but his voice held firm. "Doreen coerced us, threatened us with fines to keep us quiet. Her emails prove she targeted Dr. Reed's son." He pointed to Malcolm. "This man's fighting for all of us." Cheers erupted, drowning Doreen's attempt to interrupt. Maria Lopez rose, her voice blazing. "You fined my son for skateboarding, called him a menace. You're the menace." One by one, residents stood, parents, retirees, young couples, each with a story of Doreen's tyranny. The room pulsed with defiance. Malcolm took the floor, his presence a quiet storm. "My son, Isaiah, loves this neighborhood. He draws to feel safe. You try to take that from him." He held up a photo of Isaiah's latest chalk drawing, a riot of red and blue trucks. "This isn't vandalism. It's joy." His voice cracked, raw with love. "You broke the law, Ms. Maple. But worse, you broke our trust." The crowd roared, some in tears. Doreen's face drained of color, her notebook slipping to the floor. The vote was swift. By a landslide, the board removed Doreen as security chief and suspended her from all HOA roles pending the federal investigation. Residents demanded new leadership, nominating Maria to join the board. Doreen stood frozen, then shuffled out, reporters swarming her with questions she couldn't answer. Malcolm exhaled, the weight of months lifting, but he knew the real victory was at home. That afternoon, the neighborhood transformed. News of Doreen's fall spread, and residents gathered on Malcolm Street, uninvited but welcome. They brought chalk, toys, even lemonade, turning the sidewalk into a canvas. Isaiah, hesitant at first, joined them, his smile tentative but growing. A teenager sketched a dragon beside his truck. Maria's son added a skateboarder. Malcolm watched, his throat tight. Sarah approached, notebook in hand. "This is national now," she said. The AP picked it up. "You've changed the conversation about autism and housing." Malcolm nodded, but his eyes stayed on Isaiah, laughing for the first time in weeks. Carla called later with final blows. The federal probe had uncovered more violations, and the HOA faced hefty fines. Doreen, under legal scrutiny, sold her Crestwood home and left Raleigh, her legacy in ruins. The board rescinded all fines against Isaiah and issued a public apology, printed in the News and Observer. They also adopted a new policy, inspired by Malcolm's fight, banning discriminatory enforcement and mandating disability awareness training. Crestwood wasn't perfect, but it was healing. Weeks later, Malcolm stood before the state medical board, invited to speak on advocacy. He brought Isaiah, who held a toy truck, his confidence returning. "I fought for my son," Malcolm told the room, "but I learned we're stronger together. When you see wrong, don't wait, act." The applause was thunderous, but Isaiah's proud grin was louder. Back home, the sidewalk glowed with chalk art, a testament to a boy who'd never stopped creating. As summer faded, Malcolm sat on his porch, Isaiah beside him, sketching a sunset in orange and purple. The petition's sting had faded. Many signers had apologized, some joining the chalk parties. Malcolm didn't forgive easily, but he moved forward. Crestwood was theirs again, a place where Isaiah could be himself, where a father's love had toppled a tyrant. The chalk lines stretched down the street, bold and unbroken, like their future. Autistic reads Fight Against HOA Injustice showed the power of standing up for family. Thank you for watching this story of courage and triumph. Like, subscribe, and comment to share your thoughts. Let's keep the conversation going.